Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
It's 6:05, regular meeting of the Rockingham Select Board and the Board of Liquor Commissioners. It's 2/21/23. Here in the lower theater, there is a Zoom link listed on the agenda that you can get off the meeting, the website. That being said, first item of order of business is a meeting of the Rockingham Board of Liquor Commissioners. As you can see, we have 6 applicants here. So I'll take a motion. We can do these all at once. There is Leah Kitchen Inc. For a first bar license, for a first-class bar license, a third-class restaurant bar license. Jiffy Mart is looking for a second-class license. Penguin Mart has a tobacco license and a tobacco substitute endorsement. Never heard of that one. JW Sandry is looking for a second-class license and a tobacco license. Loyal Order of Moose 527 is an outside consumption permit. And Wunderbar LLC is looking for a first-class restaurant bar license and a third-class restaurant bar license. Take a motion.
So moved.
Second approved.
So
Or
moved.
denied?
What?
Approve or deny?
Approved.
Okay.
Oh.
You just said so moved. It doesn't say whether you want.
I'm
Wait
sorry.
a second.
I second.
There's a second.
I'm just so worried about having to repeat all
Yeah,
that stuff.
no, I know, that's why I read them off. Nobody wants to repeat. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of approving the licenses as aforementioned, would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. All those in, motion carries. And it's coming around for signatures, and there's a lot of them, so.
I tried to separate them, so hopefully.
You got it right, it's like. Whatever on the back.
Yeah.
I did try to get it changed form, but that didn't work. Yay. We'll keep those circling this and go on. We adjourn the meeting of the liquor commissioners and move into the regular agenda for the select board and call the meeting to order. Approve the minutes of February 7th, 2023. They're in your packet. Take a motion.
Move to approve the minutes of February 7th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of February 7th. Are there any deletions, corrections, additions, or omissions? The one I have is, I think I'm correct when I say on the very black page, top sentence, says asked about the zoning fee line item. And go look, says, go look, ask if it was still on the payroll, and pickup said no. I think it was Rick that asked that one. Did you ask about truck being on the payroll?
I asked about that.
Okay, you did, so that's one thing. Okay, all those in favor would say aye and approve the minutes.
Aye.
All those opposed would say nay. Motion carries unanimous. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. Just so you know, we will have a couple of items for the executive session. There will be no comments coming out. It's just a board update. Scott, you have anything?
No, just one modification. We were going to do a proclamation, a presentation, and the individuals involved, they're going to be doing something up in Montpelier this week with that. So they asked if we would hold off and then do something at a future date. So I did give the board a copy of the proclamation, and we will, when we have a new date, we'll make sure that we bring the fire department and our folks in to celebrate at that time.
Ward? Seeing none? Public comment on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. No public here, so we can move past that and go to the manager report.
So a couple things, attended a update meeting with the sheriff talking about rural policing. Peter was involved, other local municipalities were involved. Didn't get a lot of new information, I don't think necessarily to update the board on. More sort of highlighting some of the problems and challenges that we're already aware of, that they don't have enough resources, state police doesn't have enough resources. All of the communities involved on the update were pretty much echoing some of the same frustrations we've heard here about some of the problems in rural Rockingham. So the sort of next step of this group, I think, is to get to a potential proposal together that might go through our elected folks and get up to Montpelier to look at some funding alternatives that might strengthen some of the options available to just get better staffing and more resources to help the sheriffs, and not just in our county, but across the state with this problem, because it's a problem that's universal in Vermont. So Peter, I didn't know if you wanted to update anything specific from that conversation. Anything else from that?
No, as you just mentioned, there's nothing really. There's a few interesting comments from some of the surrounding towns. I think Putney was in there. They asked a few questions about, how much coverage they get for how much money they're putting in, and they're all over the field as far as how many hours you can get. So, like I say, Scott, there's nothing new that we haven't heard from the guys before. So it was an interesting meeting. Didn't last for a couple hours like they claimed. I think it was about an hour with Scott.
Right.
About an hour long. I figured 2 hours, but there weren't too many participants, which was surprising. But anyway, we didn't learn anything new. So other than what we already know. So. All right, you all set?
A couple other items, just quickly. The Meeting House folks had a meeting and just did some updates in terms of the historic structures report and sort of just general information for people that are interested in the building and the facility and what's potentially happening. So there are copies of what was handed out at that meeting at your individual locations today. It's good information. I'm sure this will also be available as we approach town meeting. So I'm sure that people that might have questions, certainly it does provide a lot more information, a lot more detail based on historic structures report and some of the costs associated with the major upgrades that are necessary in the building. And I guess the final thing is, Peter has been out multiple times distributing copies of the town's annual report. So far, we got 350 of them when we first received the first shipment, and we've already distributed over 300. We kept 50 back just to distribute it the night of the meeting. But I guess some people are complaining that they haven't seen them or didn't know that they were out or whatever the case may be. But I can tell you, Peter, at least 3 different times, did fill up Lee Eyes and a couple other locations with copies of the annual report. So hopefully people did receive them, or, I apologize that some folks maybe haven't been able to get a copy, but certainly we have to keep some for the night of the actual informational meeting, so.
Unfortunately, we didn't post it on the website, but I think Elijah and Amy had posted it on Facebook pages for me, thank you both, so that it got out on Facebook. So,
Right.
We don't have it up on the website yet, because I was looking.
We have the
Check
warning up,
for
we
that.
don't have a full copy of the report on. We could
but you know,
certainly,
they've been flying out of Lee's up there in the market.
Can you put a
I
full
put
copy on there?
4 refills up there already.
we could,
Yeah,
I don't
markets,
know, I think
those
we do have
markets
an
had
electronic
twice,
copy
so
we might be able to post.
they had just a few left in the
Certainly if somebody
library.
wants to download it, it's a big document.
Yeah, you could, if you put it into that box repository,
Hmm,
you can just sit there and read it too,
yeah,
you don't have to download it.
oh, Gary's got an update.
Yeah, so it's been on the town website since it first came digitally, a week or so ago.
Right.
Whenever it came, it went up on the finance departments, just above where all the audits are. So if you go to departments, executive, right after manager's office, it's right at the top there. Rockingham Annual Report 2022, it says.
We get it on the homepage, because I looked
On the
for
which
it,
page?
on the homepage, because I looked for it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Yeah,
think
just
of
a
it.
link.
Yeah, because I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it.
You could do that, Betsy, right? Just get that link, that box link, and
I tried and it wouldn't work, so then we put it in here.
it wouldn't work,
Yeah,
why?
but can't you just link, put a hyperlink?
That's what it is, it's a hyperlink.
You couldn't
But
put
why
the
It's
can't
link,
you
on
put
the
the
finance
hyperlink on the front page?
you couldn't put the link on the homepage?
It wouldn't work for me, but yeah, we'll try
All
together.
right, well, call me tomorrow or something, I'll help you.
Okay.
That was it.
That's it. Alright,
Oh, wait, and tax sale's still scheduled for tomorrow, correct?
Thursday,
Thursday.
Thursday?
Not tomorrow.
Tomorrow's only Wednesday.
don't push it.
yeah.
We can do that later.
So Scott, I was watching the trustees meeting and I only got partway through and you talked about the bridges project with them.
I just gave them a copy of the VHP proposal just so they could see.
And was there some good feedback from them or?
More so just appreciated the update, no specific comments in terms of the design issues or any of the, we have a whole bullet list of items we still have to finish out, so
Yeah. Thanks.
nothing specific though, yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else? Hearing none, move on to the Better Connections Grant. This is one that we ratified and voted on February 7th, and it's back for signatures, so that will be coming around.
So this is, again, one of these that was very time sensitive. We appreciated the board giving us the leeway to do that. And now this is bringing it back to the warrant agenda so that we can update. And we are fully submitted and we're hopeful that with the wayfinding and all the other features of this grant that will hopefully be successful and it should be a real benefit to a lot of our efforts in our downtown with walk bike and other types of accommodations. So
Okay, next item is going to be the certificate of highway mileage. It's an annual thing that we do every year, verifying the mileage that the highway department so duly provides to us.
So nothing has changed from the prior years. If you remember last year's certificate, we did add 975 feet of additional Catskill Hill Road was added as an additional item. This year, we did not add any additional new roadway, so all the totals are the same from year to year. And we also updated all of our highway policies and procedures, and we went through that fairly long process with the board to get all of that updated. So we are in compliance with all of those as well with the state, so.
So I'll take a motion to approve the certificate of highway mileage.
Move to approve the certificate of highway mileage.
And also there'll be a certificate of compliance for the road bridge standards.
And her certificate of compliance for the road bridge standard.
I second that motion.
Okay, comments? And seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Coming around for signatures and everybody will sign the same. More signatures. The last page coming around is the budget for the items, so. Yeah, that's the budget. Look at it. Next item coming up is the train station update review analysis of brownfields, which is in your packet, and the cleanup alternatives, and then the grant status. So I guess Gary, you're on the stage.
So we'll give you just a brief update and then, so a couple things. First of all, wanted to just give you a memo just so that you can see where we stand with a variety of requirements with our funding stack, which is fairly substantial for this project. We have multiple sources of funds. And because of that, each of these, as opposed to having one standard that we could report, they each have different standards that we have to report. So we're working on NEPA compliances. We're working on phase 1 compliances. We had just finished for the Brownsfields portion, this analysis of cleanup alternatives, which I did not give you the full set. It's a much longer document with all sorts of exhibits. I basically just gave you the text and some of the executive type of items that are required or that have been recommended for action as we abate some of the conditions in the station itself. And this was all relates back to our previous discussion with Wyndham Regional, and we had applied for some grant funds to help pay for this particular remediation. And we have received assurances from Wyndham Regional that we do have $260,000 available to us in Brownsfield cleanup fund. So this document is required in order for us to then sign the grant agreements and all the other paperwork that you'll probably be seeing coming your direction for the next phase, which will be the actual remediation required as part of our acquisition of the station. So this will drive some future activities that you'll see again with Wyndham Regional to release some of those funds, as well as the purchase and sale agreement for the station itself. We spoke with Steve Akuta today. He's been going back and forth with the railroad about various items. I think now we've come to a pretty good point where we at least have the agreement in rough shape, not ready yet for board approval, but at least now we're going to get a copy that Gary and I can go through and do some work on and create some highlights so that when we bring it to the board, we at least have some opportunity to give you a synopsis of what's in the agreement. And then that'll be another milestone that'll be exciting because then that will give us a notice to proceed on all of these other grants that we can then start to unleash some of the funding. The biggest one being the Chrissy grants, which is roughly $1.8 million, I believe, in funding, which is our biggest piece of our funding stack. And that grant is a little bit unusual, is that normally Betsy or Gary or myself or somebody on staff actually writes the grants and submits them to an agency. In this case, the agency actually writes the grant and submits it to another agency. So the state actually writes the grant and then submits it for federal funding under the Chrissy grant program. So it sounds a little confusing because it is. There's a lot of people involved in this process. But that gives you a sense of some of the pieces that are moving. So we're hopeful to get something in front of you for signature. Yeah, I'm being optimistic and saying April. Gary thinks it might be a little later than April. So certainly before spring or summer. And the idea there is at least that point, we can then start to line up contractors and we'll actually start to see, once we have all the agreements in place, you'll actually start to see some work being done on the building itself. Because, once we've executed a purchase and sale. So.
Did the totals change? I noticed we got another sheet out here. Is it that 1.178,500? Is that changed from?
Just a couple of updates because I think we added the additional ARPA funds, which were not in the previous items. And I think the other item that we have we also added the Brownsfields money, which is 300,000, but I don't believe we're gonna spend the full 300. I think this estimate was 270 something, so. And I think we'll be somewhere in that neighborhood.
So of all this, funding here, this is a short already?
Not everything,
No. Okay.
no. I think the biggest question is the USDA money. I'm not sure exactly. I think Gary has that as an asterisk because we're still waiting on an award for that. That's the 50,000. The other monies like NDRC, the DTF money that is all available to us, as well as the Brownsfields money. So
Great.
and then, like I said, the big number, the really big one is to get the $1.8 million from the Chrissy grant, because that'll guarantee the real funds that we need for renovation.
Question, Scott. The remediation is within the structure itself. The brownfields remediation.
Yeah, we have to be very careful because the whole 8 acres has contamination, right? So it's very delicate about what we can or can't do. And if we dig into the ground, it opens up a Pandora's box of all sorts of cleanups. So we try to minimize that. So most of the work that we're talking about is just within the structure itself.
Because we don't own the surrounding land, right?
We will never be able to own that. We'll only be able to lease portions of it because of the way the railroad works. And that's going to be one of the issues as we go forward, is that the railroad always maintains the right of reversion. So they can always claim that they have to gain access back to pieces of their property for some new use, as long as it's railroad related. They don't normally do that. I don't anticipate that they would do that, but there's always the risk of them doing that because that's the railroad's right. They have the right to basically come back and reclaim property, even if they have valid leases.
So that's in the PNS.
It's in the agreement, and it's pretty standard for them. They have incredible rights. The railroad exists as a super entity under the law. And it's really, they're very protected. All of their rights and responsibilities are protected, and it's very difficult to get any accommodation from them because of that, because they take advantage, full advantage of that, advantageous position.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, there's one clarification. We don't actually know that any of the railroad land is contaminated. There's never been any tests there, so there's nothing that says it's contaminated, any of that 8 acres. Just like
Go talk to the people in Ohio.
Jack, don't bring a shovel.
I just have some comments about the brownfields cleanup alternatives that were recommended. And I realize that we're not at the point of, signing off on any construction documents or anything. But as far as thinking about an approach to the project, the preferred alternative recommended in the report is for the asbestos removals to remove part of the plaster in the building. I think from a historic preservation standpoint that we should really try to avoid that and try to work within the space as it is. The plaster is one of the materials that does contain a small amount of asbestos. It is not considered toxic unless it is disturbed. So the proposed plan calls for keeping the plaster within the main waiting room, but removing the plaster in the restaurant section of the building to make it ready for any future renovation. I personally think that we should try to work with the state on coming up with a plan, with whatever they will allow us to do to keep the plaster intact. I think it's part of the integrity of the historic structure. I don't want to compromise it any unnecessarily.
Is the condition of the plaster poor, medium, rare?
It's good. Part of the space has already been gutted beyond the false wall that was built up, just like a temporary wall. Some of that space has been gutted to the studs, but the part that is in the, would have been used the gift shop, has been, recently painted and everything appears sound.
Here,
Yeah, so I just would say that we have put a lot of time into this research in terms of with our own Historic Preservation Commission touring the building. The funding plan includes federal historic tax credits as well as state historic tax credits. The federal ones are really rigorous, and so we had the state historic preservation officer meet us at the station and walk through what really makes sense. And so when you walk into the train station, there's this huge room, high ceilings, the clerestory, the one with the beautiful wood floors and the old North Station wooden benches in it. And that plaster is in really good shape. And what the state historic preservation officer said, for what they look for with historic preservation is that the balance of renovation, that you're maintaining, you're using a reasonable based approach where you want the feeling of history to be there when you walk into this giant waiting room. But then you have other rooms where the plaster's in poor shape. Like you walk into the area that Elijah's referring to the north in that room, and the carrying beam, the plaster's kind of rotting off it. There's a little rust under there, and it's already crumbly. The part where a restaurant would go through the roof for event, where it's out of view in the back, so it doesn't disturb the historic facade, that's already been what do you call it? There's already been plaster removed and painted over in wood in that corner of the what folks probably know as the gift shop. And in fact, the doors on that end of the building have been replaced. They look kind of like the old ones that are on the west side, but those eastern ones are brand new doors, brand new, like 20 years ago. And so I guess I would just say that the approach that's in this study, the asbestos folks who looked at it, assessed the condition, talked to, so you had EnviroVantage, an asbestos firm that's professionals working with the investors, working with Sanborn Head, who's the professional engineers that do the studies and assessment and weigh all of the factors. And you had them communicating with both VHB, who you folks know from the bridge work. They're who the town hired to be our NEPA consultants. So they're helping work on the historic preservation and the maintaining the archaeological integrity of the building. And the preferred alternative in this report meets all of those. It's what the state historic preservation officer, Elizabeth Peebles, recommended to maintain the part where we wanted to really maintain the waiting room. So I feel like this approach is, a lot of work has been gone into making sure that we're good on all levels with the professionals and the historic preservationists that are going to say whether we qualify for the historic tax credits or not. I do appreciate Elijah's approach, and he has pointed out a lot of things that we thought were impossible to keep in that main waiting area, where there are ways to do that and to get where we need to be. And but would respectfully disagree with varying from the recommendation in this report for our approach.
So what, you're concerned about the restrooms?
No, the restaurant,
Or the restaurant area?
section of the building. Yeah.
Oh,
It's just there's going to be differences of approaching that. I mean, certainly within historic preservation practice, it might be acceptable to preserve some areas and modernize some others. I just am hesitant in my approach to historic preservation to remove any historic material if it's at all avoidable. So
Could there be a conversation with I mean, once the funding is obtained and the work begins, Peoples, can she be there and make calls at the time, or do we have to say exactly which parts of the building will be removed, flashed, and which part will be reserved?
Well, that's part of the work that they're doing is characterizing what would stay and how it's addressed and what would go. And so this report goes to the State Historic Preservation Officer as part of the NEPA application. They look at it and say, yep, this is good, this meets what we said, or well, it's not gonna cut it for historic preservation in terms of, so we have a federal land, and the NEPA and the Historic Preservation Archaeological, it's called Section 106. Those pieces can make you, if you don't follow the way that the SHPO recommends to keep their level of historic preservation, you become ineligible for those federal funds. So, so this report is going to go to the State Historic Preservation Office, and they're going to say if the recommended alternative meets their conditions or not, and if not, what we need to do to get there. So before they even say, yes, you can spend any of our money, and they give us a notice to proceed, they're going to say yes or no to absolutely everything in this report. And when they say yes to them, we'll want to agree, because we want to be eligible for the federal funds that are going to repair the building. And then we need to stick to it. Like, we can't say, okay, we're going to do it, but then, let's mix and match as we go.
So it's their call.
Yes, it's their call.
It's their call whether to approve to do it that way or not, but it's kind of our call to figure out the final approach, I think, to how we want to approach the project. They might be okay with compromising and, removing some of the elements, but it would kind of be our call whether we want to compromise on that or not. That's my thought.
Any other thoughts? None? Go down to the last item. Approve the RLF loan request, Studio L 92 LLC. There is a little bit of information, not much in the packet, just a recommendation. We have two reps that went to the RLF, so can you guys fill us in on what's going on here? I tried to find the minutes, no minutes are posted yet.
Yeah.
Nope. Oh, as of the other day, but I figured it was done on the 16th, so he didn't have much time to get them on before this meeting.
I mean, Erica's on, the applicant is on too. if
Right,
he has
she's actually on Zoom.
Any questions? Yeah, well, we had a meeting just last week.
Yeah.
And we, the board heard the plans for both of those buildings. The funding is to do some more renovations, which we felt would increase the value of the facility, the buildings. So it would be a good investment, that it would cover both their outstanding mortgage payments and their what their income would be. We felt that they were quite covered with ensuring that they could meet that payment of, what did we decide, about $650 a month for the loan. And there was other factors that they were, her business in Boston will be sold when they're ready to move up here. So that would also be an investment that they can have to pay back the loan. So we felt it was a good loan.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on it, and the applicant, I guess she's here now, Erica, was pretty impressive. She's got a good track record. And they're living with her in-laws, I guess, in Walpole, which saves them having to pay rent every month. So that gives them, you were there, Scott, too. It gives them space to, lots of room in their monthly budget to make the loan payment. So it was unanimous, right?
Yeah, it was unanimous, and she already has a client base because she's been here, so.
What
It's going to be a hair salon, well, it's a multiple purpose, a hair salon downstairs. Upstairs is a studio for her partner who's an artist.
Okay.
And then the next door building, the Real Scoop building will be rented out, so that will also bring in income,
So
so
they're gonna own it or lease it?
they own both.
Both.
They've already
gonna own it.
closed and they've
Okay.
owned them.
They own both. And they were, the loan was provided by Mascoma Savings Bank, and they passed all their qualifications, so that was another stroke in their favor.
Yeah, and we put quite a few, conditions on the loan to cover us. We have a second,
Position.
position on the mortgage. So,
So, did they, buck up any personal funds? I always ask that question.
Yes,
yes,
they've got
they've
some
already
skin
put
in it.
in
I-
30,000 or something for the renovation they're
I
doing
just
now,
No, that's,
so
that's a good thing to notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they definitely have skin in the game.
Well, I always ask that question.
Inherently.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions?
And I don't know if we want to ask if Erica has anything to say.
Erica, you want to expound on that?
No, I think you guys covered everything really well.
Okay, how you doing? I'm missing yet, but I'm sure we will.
Yeah, we put about, I think it was, like 35,000 down on the purchase of the building, and we've already put about, I would say $5,000 into the renovation of the Real Scoop. And we have more money saved that we're doing the renovations on the Real Scoop with our own money. And the money from this would go to the renovation of the old Shona building, 92. Kind of get that ready for opening and hopefully by September. So
Yes, I'm glad somebody's doing something with those. The sod looks like it's falling off with the scoop there. And, some of those tiles look like they're ready to. Do you have a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I think I'm probably one of the first people that met Tim and Erica when they came to town to look at the building, and talked to them quite a bit since. And I think they just they're very, very capable of taking on this project, and they're very professional, and I think they've really done all their homework and covered all their bases on everything. So
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do really great.
I think so too.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the loan for the revolving loan fund for $50,000 at 5.5% for 96 months to Studio 92 LLC.
So moved.
Do we hear a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion is made to approve the loan. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
All right. Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it all.
thank you guys so much.
Thanks. Okay. Now, need to approve the orders and bills and warrants. I'll take a motion for that.
Move to approve orders, bills and warrants.
Second.
I'll second that.
Do you have any questions, comments? Was made and seconded to approve the orders, bills and warrants. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Coming around for signatures. You want this one?
Yep.
We get that.
Sign tonight.
I know.
Now, if we got all those liquor licenses the heck out of the way, we're all free. For a while.
Got more coming next meeting.
Well, stop now, come on. Oh, well, they never end for some reason, brother.
Good drive.
Here's some more lunch.
Okay, review agenda items for March 7th, 2023. That will be after the vote. It appears there's
So
not too
what
much
time do you want your
opposition for
warrant
people
meeting
running.
for? Either 7 or 7:30?
So I would suggest we try and shoot for 7:30.
7:30?
But they should have the vote. The only thing that's gonna hold up is write-ins, but
Okay.
I mean, there's only a couple of them that I know. It's one for school board that's running. Ralph Welts is, I saw a note, a sign the other day.
Okay.
So then we need, so 7:30, so, all right, that sounds good. Well, basically reorganization. Take their of record, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing new. Scott has a few other items will be on there, but nothing drastic. I'm gonna try and keep it short, so we don't have to
Yeah, that's why you
be
want
here all
to
night.
get this Arla loan through. isn't it?
Okay, anybody else have anything, review agenda items for the joint board meeting, that's not till May, so we got a while to work on that. Other business, let's start with Elijah.
Yeah, I would just say that I inspected the work in the attic on the welding today, and I think it was very well done. Everything looks very nice and clean and very high quality of work, and they even cleaned everything up nicely, so very satisfied with that. And I've also had some requests from residents for another trash receptacle on Rockingham Street. The last one in the row is at the Legion parking lot. And we tend to get a lot of rubbish along the street between Penguin Mart and Donovan's in that stretch. And I do agree it would be very helpful if we could have another receptacle along that stretch.
I guess a couple things I'll say to the board about that. We have to rebid our contract for collection for the downtown collection. So that contract is expired, so it has to get renewed. So we'll have to put those can collections out to bid. We've made a few changes since it was originally done, I think in 2019. I think the last time it was updated. So you certainly can add to that if you'd like. It'll just, whatever the price is, it is in terms of collection for the contractor.
Where's the one located up there that way?
The last one is at the Legion parking lot. And
Oh, okay,
there's
I tried to, right, yeah,
nothing
right,
going
right,
forward from
So
that.
you need one, you want to talk about one further up?
Further up, yeah,
For Walgreens?
yeah, at least one. Two would be ideal, but yeah, I realize there's cost to every one of those, but at least one more I think would be reasonable.
So beyond where those angled parking spaces, further north of that?
Within the area of those angled parking spaces, or even as far up as probably near the Walgreens or the Penguin Mart.
Because it'd be obscured by the cars if it were against that wall there. And to further out, cars would be dodging it to park. So maybe further toward the Walgreens would make more sense. The people coming out of Walgreens tend to have a lot of stuff, so
Yeah.
maybe that's the better.
There's always a lot of Dunkin' Donuts, coffee cups, and
People come out of Penguin Mart.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
all along there. It looks like people start out, walking back towards the center of town
They
with
finish
the
their
drink,
thing
and then they
toss it.
finish it and they toss it.
You should have a rubbish patrol and separate bags and bring the bags back to the people where they originally from.
Yeah, take them back. to Penguin
It's
Mart.
such a start of what you guys are people are leaving on the street. Not that that would work, but I mean, just a thought. Okay,
Also-
anybody else? Bonnie.
I've also had comments from people that the recycling is being thrown in with the rubbish when they collect the trash. So that's maybe an issue that we.
I think that's another reason why it probably needs to go out and be rebid. I think they've become a little complacent in terms of their management of this contract.
I think also sometimes their pickup times can be a little bit erratic, and I've noticed that occasionally they'll miss a can, they'll sit for a week overflowing.
Well, what I've noticed, and this is a real problem from the downtown, is people will stop in their cars, get out and stuff bags of trash
happen.
into those receptacles. Because I saw it last week, they had just been cleaned. And then all of a sudden, the one in front of town hall was full and overflowing because literally somebody got out of their car at the M&T, dumped 3 bags of trash in it and then drove away. So I don't know what we do to stop that.
I saw one out there at the bridge construction on 121. Some old guy pulled up in the car and started just chucking bags into their dumpster. I was gonna say, shit, what the heck's that guy doing?
I guess he thought it was green up day, just a little.
Evidently, but that's what's happening.
It's frustrating, and I don't disagree with Elijah, but it really does frustrate me when we see
It's
these things.
definitely a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't be throwing out garbage on the street.
Yeah, it's a little much.
Not acceptable.
Those cans are not made for that, obviously, they're made for, small amounts.
And I know that, you know, down at the park, we've got a can mark recycling and a can mark. They put everything everywhere.
So Bonnie, any other business?
No, other than, and I want to ask, what do we do on town meeting night? What time do we have to be there?
I got two lovely little duties right here.
Oh, you do?
I'm gonna tell you when we get down here. but
Okay, good.
Other business, so,
I'm all set,
Rick?
thanks.
Nothing.
Okay, so you want your dues now or you want it afterwards? Yeah, nothing serious.
Let's hear
Are we
Article one,
first for the select, or the school board?
we go first.
We go first.
I fought with Lambert.
I asked Kathleen because I wasn't sure, but she
I
swear.
fought with Lambert, I thought they were going first.
it. In the past.
No,
we
you went,
haven't
we went
gone
first
We're
last year.
supposed to rotate.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. So the first article was just the elect town officers, and Obi will read that, the moderator, receive and act upon the town reports, I think that one, Elijah. Just read it. Sue, you want the next one, which is Article 3, just the formal money. Rick, you got Article 4, if you want it. Authorize the select board to seek out funds, et cetera, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Article 5 is the money article, I'll address that one. That's the budget. Article 6, Bonnie, that's the social services. Obi will have all these and then he'll just call on you.
Right,
And anybody wants to speak to those things, just, just mention you want to speak to it. Article 7 is the a thing up to the library. I'll take that one. Next one is Article 8. That's for the Rockingham Meeting House. Rick, you want to take that one?
Yep.
And Elijah, we'll take the other one for the Rockingham Meeting House, $20,000 one. Bonnie, you can have the voters of the town of Rockingham for your volunteer work down there at the
okay.
Sue can have Article 11, that's the $6,000 sheriff one. You can give that away if you want, trade it with somebody. That's figured to get some static on that.
Your neighbors will be watching.
Yes.
That's
My
I figured
neighbors,
I was.
they had better be there because they want it, they better show up, go for it.
Exactly.
And the other, the voter for by Australian ballot, I can read that one off, that's just, we're gonna have to explain it.
We're gonna
We
need
have
to
to do it
explain
again
that.
because
Right.
we voted and we used it the same year, that's, can't do that. That was last year, so then, Obi reads the other transact, other business, so. That covers it,
What time do we have to be there?
7 o'clock is when the meeting starts.
And we have to,
Right now, we're scheduled for here.
We're still doing it,
Here?
we're doing it down here,
I'll move these tables out. We'll fill out the,
this way.
right, so.
And there's
Okay.
a way for they can get on Zoom. Anybody that is on Zoom can participate in the meeting, but they cannot vote. All voting is done from the floor by the people in attendance at the meeting. So if you intend to vote, you have to be at the meeting. And that includes anybody that requests a paper ballot. It's not the same as Australian ballot. Somebody can get up and ask for a paper ballot. Once they got 7 other people to back them up, they can move the paper ballot. Do that. So all money articles are gonna be from the floor this year.
Can we get a sandwich board sign put outside just to let people know that, the town meeting is down here, just remind people? I think actually it'd be kind of great if we could have that just even for regular select board meetings, just put out the day of the meeting. just
I
have it
bet a
out
lot of
all day.
people wind up, trying to get upstairs, you know?
See if we can put something out and find something. I think we might have to board around somewhere.
Yeah, I think any of our meetings here really would just be nice just to try to advertise them more, just have a visible sign outside. Just make sure people stay more informed.
One other thing I had is a comment on your walk point, committee minutes. Yep. The last one I read, you mentioned something about AARP versus ARPA.
Oh.
Which is, I don't know if AARP ever gives out money, they always send out looking for donations, but so your minutes said they, something about getting funds from AARP, so can you enlighten us on that one?
I asked about that, and Marcia and Rabani clarified that it was AARP.
Did they ask, I didn't know if that was just a misprint or what.
No,
They've got grants.
we started looking for, or discussing, things to do in and around the senior center and
It's got me something about senior center, so.
so.
Yeah.
I was curious about that, if it was a typo or not.
Okay, and there's something about 315, you can do some meeting on the 315th, or there's a applications to do it on the 15th of March or something like that, for the AARP. I thought that was my,
I do not recall. I remember the date. I don't recall what
yeah, I just,
it was.
hey. Anybody else have? Nobody else, okay? Will we, take a motion to move into an executive session for, let's see, real estate, and then we'll need another one for, personnel matter. For updates.
Mark has to read that, or you?
So. It'd be one of the first one, well, let's go into the one for, the real estate situation.
All right, I move that we go into executive session to discuss real estate issues.
Read number one. That's one we need.
Negotiating for securing real estate purchase or lease options.
Right, and then invite the manager and Alyssa into that.
Yes.
And Scott Pickup and Alyssa Harlow are invited to the executive session.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we are in the executive session for the real estate issue.